That's the environment in which I was brought up. And so I say, let us reach out a helping hand to other people.
I'd rather go overboard with compassion than go overboard with punishment.
The life lessons you're about to learn, they're going to stay with you forever. Let me tell you.
I am deeply honored, really, these aren't just words, and moved by receiving this honor tonight.
At age 88, Frank Caprio, the man the world called the kindest judge on earth, closed his eyes for the last time. August 20th, 2025. Pancreatic cancer, a quiet death, far from the cameras that made him a global icon. But what if I told you that behind those viral videos, behind that grandfatherly smile, behind every case dismissed that made millions cry, there was a story they never wanted you to see. A city council investigation. A family business disguised as justice. $100,000 a year in undisclosed income, and a question nobody dared to ask out loud. Was Frank Caprio the kindest judge in the world, or the greatest performance in legal history? They called him a hero, a symbol of compassion. But some people started asking, where does justice end and entertainment begin? This is the story of a man who became a saint in the eyes of millions, and the uncomfortable truth about what happens when a courtroom becomes a stage. Don't forget to hit follow, because what comes next will change how you see every viral video of justice forever. November 24th, 1936. A baby boy is born in Federal Hill, Providence, Rhode Island. His parents, Italian immigrants, selling fruit on the street, living paycheck to paycheck, sometimes no paycheck at all. His name, Francesco Frank Caprio. And from the moment he could walk, Frank learned what it meant to survive. He grew up in a small apartment where winter meant keeping warm by opening the oven door and letting the heat fill the room. Where new shoes weren't a birthday gift, they were a miracle. Where being hungry wasn't a feeling, it was a fact of life. But Frank had something most kids in Federal Hill didn't have: a father with a dream. A father who looked at his 10-year-old son one cold night and said, "One day, you're going to be a lawyer, because if I ever needed one, I couldn't afford it. And you can never forget where you came from." That sentence, those words, they became the foundation of everything Frank Caprio would ever do. While other kids played, Frank worked, shining shoes, washing dishes, doing whatever it took to help his family eat. And when he wasn't working, he was studying, public schools, Central High School, where he didn't just study, he wrestled. Literally. Olympic-style wrestling. Discipline, grit, pain. He graduated, went to Providence College, and still he kept working, teaching history and government at Hope High School during the day. And at night, law school, Suffolk University School of Law, studying under dim lights while the rest of the city slept. His wife Joyce stood by him. His children grew up watching their father chase something most people said was impossible for a kid from Federal Hill. A boy who heated his home with an oven door doesn't become a judge. That's what they said. But Frank Caprio wasn't listening to them. He was listening to his father's voice. Never forget where you came from. And then came the military, the Army Reserve. Some sources say Rhode Island National Guard. The details vary, but what doesn't vary is what Frank himself said about it in an interview with Stars and Stripes. "The military taught me discipline. It taught me there are rules. You follow them. You respect authority. It gave me a compass." That's important, because when people think of Frank Caprio, they think of the soft grandpa who forgives parking tickets and hugs crying defendants. But Frank wasn't soft. He was structured. He believed in rules. He believed in order. He just also believed that the law should remember you're dealing with human beings, not case numbers. That combination, discipline plus empathy, military training plus immigrant struggle, that's what made Frank Caprio different. Not just kind, strategic. In 1985, Frank Caprio became a judge. Not a federal judge, not a criminal court judge, a municipal court judge in Providence, Rhode Island. Traffic violations, parking tickets, small fines, the kind of cases most lawyers don't even bother with, the kind of cases most judges handle in 90 seconds. But Frank didn't treat them like small cases. He treated them like lives. A single mother who parked illegally because she was rushing her sick kid to the hospital? Frank listened. An elderly man who missed a court date because he couldn't afford the bus fare? Frank listened. A teenager who drove without a license because his dad needed to get to work and couldn't drive himself? Frank listened. And then, case by case, decision by decision, Frank Caprio started doing something radical. He started dismissing cases, not because people didn't break the law, but because the law, in his words, wasn't written for robots. It was written for people. That's when his brother had an idea. A television show, public access, low budget. Just film what happens in the courtroom and let people see how justice could actually work. The show was called Court in Providence. It started in 1988, and for years, almost nobody watched. It was local, it was niche. It was just Providence, Rhode Island, doing its thing. But then something happened. The internet, YouTube, Facebook, viral videos. Around 2017, clips from Court in Providence started spreading. A grandmother crying because she couldn't pay a seatbelt fine, and Frank Caprio hugging her and saying, "You remind me of my mother," case dismissed. A veteran explaining he missed court because of PTSD, and Frank standing up, saluting him and waiving every charge. A young immigrant girl brought in by her father for a parking violation, and Frank asking her about school, her dreams, her future, and then tearing up the ticket and telling her, "You're going to do great things." People loved it. Millions loved it. Tens of millions. The videos got 50 million views, 100 million views, comments in every language. This man restored my faith in humanity. We need more judges like him. He's an angel. Frank Caprio became a global icon, the kindest judge in the world. News outlets from CNN to the BBC covered him. He got awards, honors, invitations to speak at universities. Providence College celebrated him. The University of Rhode Island celebrated him. He was no longer just a municipal judge. He was a movement, a symbol, proof that the system could have a heart. But here's the thing about becoming a symbol. Once you're no longer just a person, once you're a brand, a product, an image, people start asking questions. And not everyone liked the answers. By 2020, Frank Caprio wasn't just famous, he was everywhere. The show had millions of subscribers. Clips were being reposted, remixed, turned into memes. Court in Providence wasn't just a courtroom show anymore, it was content. And content makes money. So the question people started whispering, quietly at first, then louder, was this: who's getting paid? The show was filmed in a government building, a municipal courtroom, public property, funded by taxpayers. And Frank Caprio, a sitting judge, a government employee, was the star, not an actor, not a TV personality, a judge whose salary was paid by the people of Providence. So if the show was making money, and it clearly was, where was that money going? For years, Frank insisted he wasn't getting paid. He said it over and over in interviews, in public statements to reporters. "I don't make a dime from the show. This isn't about money. It's about showing people that justice can be human." And people believed him. Why wouldn't they? He was Frank Caprio, the kindest judge in the world. But then in 2023, something changed. The Providence City Council started asking questions, not accusations, just questions. They wanted to know, was there a formal agreement to film in the courthouse? Who owned the footage? Who controlled the revenue? What were the ethics rules around this? And most importantly, was anyone in the Caprio family making money from a show that was filmed in a government courtroom using government resources? That's when the cracks started to show. According to public records and reports from local news outlets like ABC6 and NBC10, it was revealed that while Frank himself claimed he didn't receive money, his family did. His brother, who produced the show, his son David, who was involved in the project. And according to one report, David Caprio had been receiving approximately $100,000 per year from the show since 2017. $100,000 per year. From a show filmed in a courthouse paid for by taxpayers, featuring a judge paid by taxpayers, making decisions that affected real people's lives. Now here's where it gets complicated, because technically, according to the Rhode Island Ethics Commission, it wasn't illegal. The commission had issued an opinion that said family members could profit from the show as long as the judge himself didn't directly profit. So on paper, everything was fine. Frank didn't get a check. His family did. Problem solved, right? But here's what people started asking. If your brother is making money, if your son is making money, if the show that features you as the star is generating 6 figures a year for your family, can you really say you're not benefiting? If your son is earning $100,000 a year because you're on camera being the kindest judge in the world, does it matter that the check isn't in your name? That's the question that started to spread. Not in mainstream media, not on CNN, but in local news, on Reddit forums, in Facebook comments under the viral videos. People who had loved Frank Caprio started to feel uncomfortable, like they'd been watching something that wasn't quite what they thought it was. And then people started re-watching the videos, not with tears in their eyes, but with questions in their minds. Why were the cases always so perfectly emotional? Why was there always a crying grandmother, or a struggling veteran, or an immigrant family, right when the camera was rolling? Why did Frank always have the perfect line, the perfect gesture, the perfect moment? Some people said because he's genuinely kind, that's who he is. But others started saying because he's performing, because he knows what plays well, because after decades of being filmed, you learn what moments go viral. And if your family is making $100,000 a year from those moments, you have an incentive to create more of them. Was Frank Caprio dismissing cases because it was the right thing to do, or because it made good content? That's the question nobody wanted to ask out loud. But once it was asked, it couldn't be unasked. Then there were the people who didn't get their viral moment, the ones who showed up to court, told their story, and didn't get a hug, didn't get a dismissal, didn't get their case turned into a feel-good clip with 10 million views. What about them? Some of them started speaking up online, not officially, not in lawsuits, but in comments, in forums, saying things like, I went to his court, I had a similar situation. He didn't dismiss my case, he wasn't kind to me. Was it because the camera wasn't on, or because my story wasn't emotional enough? These voices were quiet, scattered, easy to dismiss as jealousy or bitterness, but they were there. And they raised an uncomfortable possibility that Frank Caprio's kindness wasn't universal. It was selective, curated, designed for the camera. Now, let's be clear. There's no evidence that Frank Caprio ever broke the law. There's no criminal investigation, no charges, no scandal in the traditional sense. The Ethics Commission reviewed the arrangement and said it was technically okay. The City Council asked questions, but no formal action was taken. Frank Caprio retired in 2023 with his reputation largely intact. He was celebrated, honored, loved. But the questions didn't go away. They just got quieter. Because once you've built an empire on the image of being the kindest judge in the world, questioning that image feels almost cruel, like attacking a grandfather, like doubting a saint. But here's what we know for certain. Frank Caprio grew up poor. He worked hard. He became a judge. He treated people with respect in a system that often doesn't, and for that he deserves credit, real credit. But we also know this. His family made significant money from filming his courtroom. The show became a business, a brand, a content machine. And whether Frank intended it or not, whether he ever took a dollar directly or not, his image, his decisions, his courtroom became a product. And when justice becomes a product, when compassion becomes content, when a judge's decisions are influenced, even subconsciously, by what will play well on camera, we have to ask, is that still justice? Or is it something else? Something more complicated. Something we don't have a name for yet. In his final years, Frank Caprio faced something he couldn't dismiss with a kind word and a hug. Pancreatic cancer. One of the most aggressive, most painful, most unforgiving diseases a person can face. He fought it, privately, away from the cameras. There were no viral videos of Frank Caprio in a hospital bed, no tearful updates, no documentaries about his struggle. Just a quiet, dignified battle that he ultimately lost. On August 20th, 2025, Frank Caprio died at age 88. Surrounded by his wife Joyce, his children, his grandchildren, the people he loved, the people who loved him, Not the millions who watched him online, just his family. And when the news broke, the tributes poured in. Thousands of comments. Rest in peace to the kindest judge. He changed my life. The world lost a hero. And maybe they're right. Maybe Frank Caprio was a hero. Maybe he did change lives. Maybe the fact that millions of people saw a judge treat human beings with dignity, even if it was on camera, even if there was money involved, maybe that matters more than the uncomfortable questions. Or maybe both things are true. Maybe Frank Caprio was kind and calculated, genuine and performative. A man who truly believed in compassion, and a man who understood that compassion could be monetized. Maybe he was a product of a system that rewards viral moments and punishes nuance, a system that turned a municipal courtroom in Providence, Rhode Island, into a global stage. And once you're on that stage, once millions are watching, once your family's income depends on the show going on, can you ever step off? Can you ever just be a judge again? Or are you trapped, performing kindness, because that's what the audience demands? Frank Caprio is gone now. The show is over. The courtroom in Providence is just a courtroom again. No cameras, no viral moments. Just traffic violations and parking tickets. The way it was before Frank Caprio became a symbol. But his legacy remains. And that legacy is complicated. He showed the world that judges don't have to be cold, that the law doesn't have to be cruel, that you can enforce rules and still see the person in front of you. That matters. That's real. That's important. But he also showed us something else, something we're still trying to understand. He showed us that in the age of social media, even justice can become entertainment. Even a courtroom can become a set. Even a judge can become a brand. And once that line is crossed, once compassion becomes content, we have to ask ourselves, what are we really watching? Are we watching justice? Or are we watching a performance of justice? And if we can't tell the difference anymore, what does that say about us? Frank Caprio used to say, never forget where you came from. He never forgot. He carried Federal Hill with him every day of his life. The oven door that kept him warm. The father who told him to be a lawyer. The struggle that taught him empathy. But in the end, maybe he went somewhere his father never imagined. Somewhere beyond Providence, beyond Rhode Island, beyond even America. He went viral. He became global. He became an icon. And icons don't live in the real world. They live in the world we create for them. A world where every story has a happy ending, where every judge is kind, where every case dismissed is a victory for humanity. But the real world isn't like that. The real world is complicated, messy, full of people who don't get their viral moment, who don't get saved by a kind word and a dismissed ticket, who just pay their fine and go home and try to survive another day. And for them, Frank Caprio was just another judge, on a screen far away, unreachable. So who was Frank Caprio? Was he the kindest judge in the world? Or was he a man who found a way to turn kindness into a spectacle? Was he genuine? Or was he the greatest actor in legal history? Maybe the answer is, he was both. And maybe that's the most honest thing we can say about anyone in the age of cameras and content and viral fame. We're all performing now, all the time, for an audience we can't see, for likes we can't touch, for a legacy we can't control. Frank Caprio just did it in a courtroom, with a gavel and a smile and millions watching. And maybe in the end that's the real story. Not that he was a saint, not that he was a fraud, but that he was human, flawed, complicated, trying to do good in a system that makes it almost impossible, trying to be kind in a world that rewards performance, trying to be real in an age of content. And maybe he succeeded, or maybe he failed, or maybe, like most of us, he did a little bit of both. And now he's gone, and all we have left are the videos, the viral clips, the tearful moments, the dismissed cases, the legend of the kindest judge in the world, and a question that will never be answered. Was it real? Or was it just really good TV? If this story made you think, if it made you question what you thought you knew, don't stay silent. Like, share, and subscribe so we can keep asking the questions others are afraid to ask. Because sometimes the truth isn't found in what we celebrate. It's found in what we're afraid to examine. And Frank Caprio's story, whether you see him as a hero or something more complicated, deserves to be examined. Not with hate, not with cynicism, but with honesty. The same honesty he claimed to bring to his courtroom. Because if we can't be honest about our heroes, if we can't see them as human, flawed, complicated, then we're not honoring them. We're just building another myth, another performance, another viral moment that feels good but doesn't mean anything. And Frank Caprio, whatever else he was, deserves better than that. He deserves to be remembered as he actually was, not as the internet made him, not as the cameras captured him, but as the man who grew up in Federal Hill, who never forgot where he came from, who tried, in his own way, to make the world a little bit kinder, even if that kindness came with a price. Even if that price was something we're still trying to calculate. All data, analysis, and commentary in this video are presented based on information available at the time of production. The content is subject to change over time and should not be considered a definitive conclusion. There is still so much more to explore. Stories of justice, compassion, and the complicated truth behind viral fame. Feel free to dive into some of our other recommended videos and continue your journey into the stories they never wanted you to hear.